Okay, we are live.
Awesome. I am Chloe,
And I'm Sandy, and this is
and
WordStitch.
this is WordStitch. Oh, my head is real low in that screen.
You are kind of low right now there.
Oh, this is that camera being feisty. Am I better now, or did I like make a whole mess of things?
No, you're centered. You're good.
Perfect. Okay.
You could.
Hi, I'm Chloe, and I am centered in this one thing in my life. The rest of me is a train wreck.
Oh.
Um, so today, we are going to be doing some word sprints as per usual, although I think neither of us are writing right now. Are you writing right now?
No, I'm editing. Um, but okay, good news. I'm
Good
not.
news.
I'm not working on fan fiction today.
um, you know, when like you have a kid who's like failing every class and then they bring home a C and you have to congratulate them even though like you really wanted an A.
Where is this going?
That's kind of how I feel about you saying good news. I'm not writing fanfic.
This
I
is
mean, you
this.
you get a C on
Oh, I
that.
see. The standards are that high, huh? Yeah. No, well,
Yeah.
I'm really
I
proud
was
of
saying
it.
good news. I just finished something major, like, you know.
Uh, you know, the fan fiction thing, I dearly love my fan fiction people, and I think fan fiction is a great place to learn how to write, and so I don't want to let them down. So it actually is kind of a big deal to finish a project because it means I can move
Okay.
on without.
You said that was like a real old project, right?
Yeah, I have like the epilogue left. It's mostly written at this point. So yeah,
Okay.
it's
All right.
intense.
I'm going to congratulate you next week when you actually get that epilogue written and you never have to write it again.
Oh, but I'll probably go back to fan fiction at some point. Just this project is done.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Make some writing money first and then go back and then you can like advertise your fanfic like, hey, like my writing, but also like your really obscure fanfic, something about a ladybug. I don't remember what it was.
I'm very impressed that you remember that. That's not bad. Yeah. Um
Because I have no idea what it is. I just know it has something to do with a ladybug. That's a girl in a ladybug costume. Is that right?
yes, and a boy in a cat suit.
Perfect. Okay, well, that's what I want your goal to be now.
All
Make
right.
some writing money, and then
And then stories
uh,
about.
do some fanfic.
All right, fair enough.
But anyways, so I totally like waylaid this as I normally do, but so we are
That was
going
me.
to do a couple of our word sprints, the usual ones, and we are also going to be continuing our conversation on commas as my voice breaks because I have a 14-year-old boy, and that is okay. Um, so I am going to be doing a couple PowerPoint on obscure comma rules because that is my jam. And then we're going to be using our big break to judge Sandy's commas harshly.
To help me
Um,
learn, to
yeah,
show me
yeah,
where I
like
made mistakes.
good judging harshly.
Yeah, judge harsh.
Well, hopefully we're judging accurately. Oh no, what have I done? So I'm going to have a very slight technical difficulty. There we go. But it is that time.
Mhm.
So we are going to write for the next 10 minutes. So we will see you at quarter after.
Okay, we are back.
We are. And I totally got lost for a second. So I'm not prepared, but that's okay. Isn't that just the usual? Okay. So we are going to start with my two presentations. So let me see if I can fight my computer a whole bunch to share the correct screen. Oh, this is about to get crazy because what's on this screen right now is nuts because I got too much on this screen, but that's okay. So share that and then do that, and hopefully you just do what you do, but you're not going to. Yay! Okay. So my first little presentation is on coordinate adjectives.
Oh, pretty font. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So I went font crazy this week while working on a cover, the worst cover known to man. I love it. But so now all of my fonts are like ridiculously overdone, and we just have to accept it and love it for what it is. So a coordinating adjective. Coordinating adjectives are adjectives that are the same weight in modifying whatever they are modifying. So they are two things that are about the same value. And an example for this is thorny, fragrant roses. Thorny and fragrant are about the same. One is describing the texture and the other is describing the scent, but neither of them is more valuable than the other in this description. The same with that is going to be, I just found this is a really weird one. I just found it looking through a book. I was like, I need a good example that isn't my own. And I found this in a random Nora Roberts. It is not talking about a window, but a mental wall. It is a clear, thin wall. Again, this is describing to the color of it and also the texture, the width of it, I guess. Neither of these is more valuable than the other. In that context, it's talking about like a mental wall that's going up. So these are coordinate adjectives. The alternative to, and coordinate adjectives are always going to have commas. This is even like, sometimes you'll have situations like dark, stormy nights. Even though it's a phrase we always hear in that order, you're going to put a comma there because there's actually no value, even though you always hear it in that structure, which is going to, why I'm explaining that is going to make sense in a minute. I just realized that I'm kind of jumping the gun. How are you doing today, Sandy?
I'm good. Keep going.
Okay. Sorry. I do that thing where I forget where I'm going with things.
Although clear thin wall, I just keep thinking, who does clear thin wall? Who does clear thin wall though? It should be like clear thin mucus. That's just where I went with it, but you know,
okay,
whatever.
Well, that's because of medical stuff. Like I said, I literally just pulled it out of a book because I felt more legit going that route as opposed to making stuff up. Okay. So the alternative to a coordinate adjective is, surprisingly enough, a non-coordinate adjective. These are adjectives that do have varying value to the noun, where one of them is more important than the other. Some examples for this are a tall beach house. Beach is obviously like, it is way more important that we know it is a beach house than that we know that it is tall. Beach just says so much more about the house. It's also, I don't mention it anywhere on these slides, but you always go from least important to most important, which is actually, I'm dumb and I'm jumping ahead again. It's gonna just not be explicitly stated on the next slide, but it will be on the next slide. Another example of that is strong peppermint candies. Obviously, it's more important that we know that it's peppermint than that it is strong. It's also questionable in a statement like that if we're actually referring to the peppermint or the candy as being strong. That's going to come in a little bit in a moment too. So in a case of non-coordinate adjectives, you do not use commas, as I have not done here. So in order to test for coordinating adjectives, testing for coordinating adjectives, what?
There's a test. Sorry, I just got excited.
It's an easy test. You flip them. If you can flip them, then you know that they are coordinating adjectives. So in the examples that I gave, thorny fragrant roses is identical and makes just as much sense as fragrant thorny roses. Now, depending on what you're writing, because these two are I don't remember the right word. They're not quite antonyms, but one is a good quality and one is a bad quality. It might, within the context of the sentence, make sense that it's going one way or the other way. But it doesn't actually matter which way it goes, except in a prosaic sense. Did I use that word properly? I don't know. I'm making this up as I go along.
It sounded good to me.
Sometimes I just hope that words work. I just throw them at the wall, and if it works, great. If not, we're just keep going. Just like this wall. A thin, clear wall makes every bit as much sense as a clear, thin wall. Maybe it's a wall made out of saran wrap. We don't know. Saran wrap is clear, and it is also thin. So I could have also said thin, clear saran wrap, and that would have been exactly the same as clear, thin saran wrap. Okay, so now if we look at the other two, tall beach house makes sense. Beach tall house does not make sense. They are non-coordinating adjectives. And then, of course, the second one, strong peppermint candies makes sense. Peppermint strong candies is a real weird, and let's not do that. Okay, so real easy. Perfect test. If you are ever not sure if you are supposed to have a comma in between two adjectives, you flip them around. If they flip and it still makes sense, it doesn't sound real wonky, you put that comma there. We good on this.
I like that you give us tests and easy memory tools. I feel like this would have helped me a lot much earlier in my life.
Okay, well, it's going to help you now. Yeah. Also, I'm going to give you an example of an ultimate non-coordinating adjective. I could have gone a lot longer with this one than I did. Recall that non-coordinating adjectives are the ones that have to be in a specific order, and therefore they do not get commas. And here is a ridiculous example that totally makes sense. This very dark charcoal gray Angora wool sweater has to be in that order. There's not a single comma there. Look at that sweater.
Wait. Okay, wait. So, okay.
You can't move any of those words.
This charcoal. Wow. That was pretty impressive there.
About the color and the type. Yeah. But you would never say wool gray sweater. You would always say gray wool sweater.
So you don't need the comma between dark and charcoal or gray and Angora?
No, because, okay, so this is what I was kind of hinting at before with the strong peppermint candies, that with strong peppermint candies, you do not know if strong is describing the peppermint or the candy. Technically, I guess it would be describing the peppermint, because what else would be strong about that candy? But it's not really super clear about this. And this one, very describes dark, dark describes charcoal, and charcoal describes gray.
Huh. Okay, but so then
charcoal is a type of gray, and dark is a tone of charcoal, and very is I don't remember the correct word for that. There's a fancy word for very. That's okay.
That was a really impressive example. I'm going to be thinking about that for a very long time.
Yeah, I almost had a thing in there about CableNet, but then I wasn't sure where, CableNet actually does not, you could argue about where CableNet goes in relation to Angora wool. So CableNet would get commas on it, and it'd get real complicated then. So I decided not to not to throw cable knit into it, even though that's a very nice cable knit in that cardigan pictured there.
You would be very good at teaching English lessons. This
You
is
do
the
know that I have
most
done this in the past.
really.
Yeah,
Wow.
I used to do the test prep. It's probably time, isn't it? I don't have a
Yes.
clock on either of my monitors
It
right
is
now.
time. It is time for the word sprint.
Okay, so let me. Oh gosh. Okay, this is gonna be a minute.
Oh, I just froze at a funny kitty picture. That's awesome.
What was
And
that?
nothing. I'm just making weird random babbling noises.
If anybody's curious about what Sandy looks from my angle, you just got her there for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey, we're only a minute behind though, and I am proud of that. So there is the correct thing to be sharing right now, but we are not doing. Excuse me, we're not doing 10 minutes. We are doing 25 minutes. We're going to start right now, and it's going to take us to 51 after or 9 of. Good
Okay. Oh, do I still
I was
have
still
you?
muted. That was me. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. All right. So do we have another comma lesson? What are you working on, by the
Yes,
way?
we do.
I totally forgot
What
to
am I
ask.
working at?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know that I tell you not to do this.
Oh my God. Is this fan
I'm
fiction?
redoing. What was that?
Is this fan fiction?
No,
Oh.
no, I'm redoing Talia cover.
But the Talia cover is beautiful.
Yeah, no. I just wanted a little bit more jazzy color, and now I'm happy with a font to have as my font.
Okay.
So it's gonna look basically the same. It's just being spruced up a little bit. Yeah. Okay. And this will be the last time I touch this dang cover because why do I keep doing this?
And because it's
The
beautiful.
important thing though is that I've got one more comma lesson for us.
All right. All right. Let's do this.
So if I can find it, because it is buried under so many things now. Just let me do this. Just accept that I have no control over PowerPoint, and there's probably a real easy way for me to do this, and instead I just got to go through the whole thing again. That's my little song. I know that there was like a button I could have hit like hours ago to prevent this from happening. Okay. You're wrong about commas before quotes. This isn't you personally, Sandy, are wrong about commas before quotes. But we've been flooded with a very overly simplified rule, and it makes us all wrong about commas. The important thing, though, is that mostly you are right. According to Chloe, commas usually fall before quotes, and this is how we've been taught. Chloe said, this is a great place for a comma, for instance, and by that I mean after said. There's absolutely no, I'm not changing that rule. There is always going to be a comma after the word said. But technically, commas are just following their usual rules and don't care if there are quotes mixed in. So you'll notice that I gave an example of like a comma or of quotes that are not around like an actual dialogue tag. I'm not shading commas in the above sentence, just giving another example of quotes, but wait. Did I forget a comma before the quotes in that previous statement? I'm not shading commas. Is there supposed to be a comma right there? Nope.
No.
um,
I knew that one. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so the existence of mid-sentence quotes does not necessitate commas. And this is the exact same example that was on the previous page, or like the exact same structure. So this is another situation where I'm just putting quotes around a word to in some way designate it. Look, I'm kind of shading that word. I am judging the word necessitate harshly. So this is one example where you don't need quotes around it. And I see this all the time. I see constantly all over the place people putting quotes or putting a comma directly before quotes just because they are quotes. Chloe insists that a comma doesn't go before this because if she removed the quotes, the comma wouldn't work. So if I put a comma after that, what we have in this situation is a direct quote from me, but the way that it is being presented is in line. This is something that comes up a lot in academic writing. People love to put a comma after that because there's a quote right there. But if it was just a regular statement, if, for example, we were plagiarizing Chloe and not putting those quotes around a comma doesn't go before this because if she removed the quotes, the comma wouldn't work. There'd be no reason for that comma to be there. There should never be a comma after that in this scenario. Now, there is a comma after this in that quote. A comma doesn't go before this. Because if she removed the quotes, the comma wouldn't work. That comma does belong there, though, because of last week's not X because Y lecture. And you see another example right there of a place where you would not put a comma before the quote. I am just reminding you what that lecture is. I guess technically, I should have capitalized not X because Y, because it is the title of a lecture, and in this case, the title is in quotes. Do you remember? It's okay if you don't. Do you remember what circumstances you would put quotes around a title?
You mean like, are we talking like a magazine or a journal or something?
Yeah.
Or, oh, I think that totally depends on what style guide. I'd have to look it up.
Oh, that's true. That is very style specific.
Yeah.
But in this case, we are pretending that this is the correct style. Don't question me. This is Chloe style. But yeah, so that's another example of where you would not put a comma before the quotes. I went through that way more quickly than I planned to. Did that make any sense at all?
Yeah, yeah, that I think people mess it up because like the said example on the previous slide, I think that that's why we mess it up because we think that,
I want to navigate to that slide, but I don't know how, and I apologize. Oh, is it that button right there?
can you just click the
Oh
back
God.
button?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, yeah. So Chloe said this is a great place for a comma, for instance. Like, I feel like we've been taught that commas go between saids and quotation marks, and usually they do because that's how it happens, but then it
Yeah,
confuses
that's
us
the
for
one
later.
instance where it is absolutely set in stone that there is going to be a comma there.
And I
Yeah,
mean, technically, that's kind of a weird. I mean, it's kind of a
it
weird
is.
spot.
That is the one weirdness with commas and quotes. The rest of them makes sense in my mind. The first one, according to Chloe, of course, there would be a comma right there. And then, although technically, of course, there would be a comma there. But if the statement had just been like Chloe said, we should go to the store, you would never put a comma there. And so that's the one very strange instance of where that comma belongs.
So, like, what if it said, Chloe said, damn, like just one word? Then do you still put the comma there after, like, between the said and the quotation mark?
Oh yes, yes. If there were quotations, that again, that is that one situation where that quotation must be there. Is if the word before it is a dialogue tag.
Yeah.
And of course, dialogue tag is a very big family. So the example here is said, but of course it's spoke, relayed, yelled, whatever that word is.
Yeah.
There is always going to be a comma after that, but that is the only time that the quotes cause that to happen.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that was very clear, and helpful. So, and we're at 5, so that was
Oh,
a perfect
oh
lesson.
yeah, I actually timed that one
You
right.
did. You did a
On
good job.
purpose, I swear. Okay, so we're gonna do a little screen share, swappy do. This is not set up to make it particularly user friendly because you have to like unshare and then reshare. We are doing our what we like to call a 1K 30 minutes, even though neither of us is actively writing right now.
Right, right.
The important thing is that we are 1 past the hour, so we will see you at just after 1/2 past the hour. Good luck, everybody.
Okay. Well, we are almost back. You're back.
Yay.
And I'm back. Although I should switch us to my PowerPoint, I guess.
Yes.
So this session is we critique Sandy's grammar, but I thought we should probably start with the rule that I'm looking to like understand. So okay, so here is here is Chloe.
Hey.
And oh, okay. Here we go. So my biggest comma problem is with subordinating conjunctions, and these are like the although, because, before, until, since, even if, like this kind of thing. So basically, the subordinating conjunctions like tie a dependent clause to an independent clause where like one is subordinate to the other. So like Sandy will walk the dog if it is not raining, right? Like I'll only walk the dog if it is not raining. So the it is not raining doesn't even matter unless we're talking about if I'm walking the dog. Or although it was raining, Sandy walked to school. Oh, no period there. Damn.
Woo!
Always, here, I can fix that. Okay. Little tiny fix. But so those, are relatively easy, and the rule is if it's independent clause, subordinate or dependent clause. So Sandy will walk the dog if it is not raining, then no comma. And if it's the subordinator and then the dependent clause and then the independent clause, then you do put a comma in. So most often I think we see this in the because case, or at least for me, that's where it really destroys me. And so last week we talked about the because example, and Chloe talked about this. So this is like normally you wouldn't need a comma in a sentence with a because. So Chloe will bake a cake because it is Ken's birthday. I totally made this up. I suspect that this is what happens in your house, Chloe.
Yeah, it happened like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. So there, obviously no comma needed. Ken's birthday is the reason Chloe is baking the cake. So we don't need any clarity there. And of course, our example last week was in the negative. So if it's Chloe will not bake a cake because it is Ken's birthday, then we don't necessarily know what that means. So without the comma, we're saying Chloe will not bake a cake because it is Ken's birthday. As in, Ken's birthday has nothing to do with whether Chloe is baking a cake. Whereas if we say Chloe will not bake a cake because it is Ken's birthday, then Ken's birthday is the reason.
Screw Ken.
Yeah. But okay, so now, so I think the knots are relatively easy to understand, but man, am I bad when it comes to like the more ambiguous commas. So here, let me see if I can't put this up on.
I like that comma was not ambiguous enough for you.
No, it's not. Well, okay, so this is my entire list of becauses with commas in my last independently published novel. So let's see if I can't find one that's like.
I like how you're doing this. This is just every comma ever.
Yeah, it is. It is. I've got it. I've got a decent amount of them where I think
there we go. I had to maximize this because this is about to get intense right here.
It is. Okay. So, but perhaps the training sessions had been paying off because Nate had plenty of time to ride in front of Bast and telekinetically send the trucks veering to opposite sides of the road. Now,
do you even need my opinion on this one?
I do. Should that comma have been there?
No, there is nothing vague about that.
But here's the problem for me is I put a pause there. Like when
you gotta get over the pause.
Well, what if nobody else puts the pause there? They're supposed to put the pause there.
Let me read this. I feel like you're making an issue where there's no issue, but let me brain this for a second. But because the training sessions have been paying off. Oh, but perhaps the training sessions have been paying off. No, I don't see any.
You don't see a potential ambiguity there? Where
No. No, where's your ambiguity there?
could it, couldn't you potentially read that as the reason the training sessions had been paying off is because Nate had plenty of time to ride in front of Bast? And what I'm saying here is perhaps the training sessions had been paying off, and the reason I know that.
The evidence for believing that the training sessions had been paying off.
Right. So, like, the reason is not that Nate had plenty of time, but I do see that this is happening because Nate had plenty of time. I think it's ambiguous.
Okay, we'll leave it then.
But you see, so I don't know. I think these are hard, and I'm not good at them. Like, let me find one where I definitely messed it up. Here's one. So
I think if you could see a case for two different directions on it, then leave it.
But but that one it was tricky, right? Like your thought right away was like, no comma. And mine was, I think there needs to be a comma. But I had to think really hard to explain why. And this is my trouble, is that for me with becauses, I have a hard time logicking that out. Like, I say it the way I think it's supposed to be. If I say it the way I think it's supposed to be, a lot of times I think I end up being right, but I can't explain it to myself. Like, okay,
so on this page, the second one needs to be there. That's definite.
Because that's like a list, right?
No, because it's a negation.
If I can't stop performing random acts of magic, then I can never leave Novi Dupree, because we're protected on our grounds by ancient words no one understands or whatever. Are you sure?
Yeah. Because if you had that comma out there, it's saying that
I don't know. See, I think that one.
It's because you're saying if you take that comma out, you're implying that I can never leave Novi Dupree because of this thing, but I could leave because of this other thing.
Right, but I think that's what I meant to say in that sentence. Like, the reason she can't leave Novi Dupree is because she's protected by ancient wards. So, like, if that sentence...
That's correct. The alternative, so if we put this into other terms, if we put this in terms of a man, we'll say, I can never leave Ken because of the cats, but I can leave Ken because we're not married. You're not following my logic on
I'm
that.
really not. So that's where that one I think, and okay, like the one above, you need to understand your abilities better, because if you can't control them, I can see like, okay, I messed that comma
one
up.
does not need to be there.
Yeah, but the second one, I think I put it in because I had like a really long sentence there. So that sentence goes on. Like it doesn't even stop there. It just keeps going on.
Okay, so here's what it is that you so if you took that comma out here, I'm gonna try it this way. If you took the comma out, what you're saying is that you couldn't ever use the excuse that we're protected on our own. Oh God, you could never use the excuse that we're protected on our grounds in order to leave Novi Dupree, but I could use another excuse to leave Novi Dupree.
Then I can
I can never, if you take that comma out, it's I can never leave because of this reason, but I could leave because of this other reason.
But what's the other reason there?
There isn't one. That's why that comma needs to be there. With the comma there, it's saying that you just cannot leave because of this reason. That there isn't an alternative. It's literally saying I cannot leave because of this.
But wait a second. Okay, so let's like do this in isolation then. So let's suppose the sentence just said, I can never leave Novi Dupree because we're protected on our grounds by ancient wards. Like, that's the whole sentence. Yeah. So in that case, do you feel like there should be a comma there or no?
Yeah, either way there should be a comma there.
So why? Because we just said that like the comma there, I mean, it's only for clarity, right? And becauses typically do not need commas. So, and is there a rule that says like the because has to be the only reason? Because I think that's what you're saying, right? Like if I say I can never leave Novi Dupree because we're protected on our grounds by ancient wards, then I have to be saying that is the only reason that I can never leave Novi Dupree. But I could leave it for some other reason.
Right. Is that not what you're implying there?
So
wait, are you implying that you could leave for some other reason, or are you implying that you're not allowed to leave because of this reason?
I'm not allowed to leave.
This thing is preventing you from ever being able to leave versus you cannot give this reason for leaving.
This thing is preventing me from leaving.
Yes, then it's correct. Okay, how about let's try this scenario.
I don't think it's correct.
Hold on.
Okay.
What about in the statement, I could never drop out of college because of their meal plan, but I could drop out of college because I'm not getting a good education.
I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, so this is the negative example. This is like the opposite.
This is
I didn't make Ken the cake because it was his birthday.
Yeah, so this would be if we put it into that if we put it into that term, the college one. What this sentence is saying is I could never leave my college because I am getting a good education there. That's what your sentence is saying.
Okay. So I had this right. I just don't.
Yeah, that's correct. That's what I'm saying. That's correct.
All right. Okay, I think I see that. All right. Let's do another one. Let's see what else I can confuse. I got. So what's the next one that comes up here? Okay, well, this one doesn't count because this is a name being set off by commas.
Okay.
How about this one? Same thing. Okay, here's one. Is the blood dry? Karina asked, because the amount of blood that came from your head didn't necessarily determine the level of injury. So I think I probably decided to put the comma in because I felt like there should be a pause there. But I think with the rules, I don't know if you need it.
I feel like this is a stylistic comma and it should stay, but technically you do not need this because that is the reason that she asked. Oh, wait. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That is the reason that she asked.
Yeah.
She asked, is the blood dry because the amount of blood that comes from your head. And if you put it in that context, the way that I just phrased it, she asked, is the blood dry because the amount of blood that came from the injury didn't necessarily determine the level of injury. There would be no comma there.
Right. So should I have taken the comma out here?
Oh, you know what though? No.
You see where I struggle with these?
Yeah, this is a very, very unique situation on this.
I've got like 17 unique situations.
It's not even a unique situation. Again, it's a style versus function. And I feel like this is a style. I'm going back to my initial determination that the comma does not need to be there, but stylistically it's better if it's there. Because I feel like you're trying to put a little bit of sass on that, right?
I am, yes.
Yeah. Keep the comma there because it's implying sass. It's one of those things where it's kind of implying that she's asking an obvious question.
I think also here for me, like the Karina asked part, this is in her voice, right? So like from her perspective, this is her saying, is the blood dry? Because the amount of blood that comes from your head doesn't necessarily determine the level of injury. So it's not like she's saying, is the blood dry because the amount of blood that came from your head doesn't determine the injury. She's saying, is the blood dry? And like she's asking about that because she knows that. Do you see what I'm saying?
What you're trying to say there, I think, would imply that it needs to be italicized because it's a thought.
But it's not a thought, right? It's an actual sentence.
Well,
it's
the way
just
that you're pitching it to me, you're pitching it as a thought.
no. But I mean, like
a thought that's continuing after her statement.
It is, but in a third person perspective, you're always in the character's head, right? So like you wouldn't italicize.
It's definitely not in her head. Although, given what she was seeing now, she was a little concerned. Actually, because she is a little concerned, I guess. Well, no. No, the next one is definitely not in her head. Like that. So you're telling me that because the amount of blood that came from your head didn't necessarily determine the level of injury. First of all, the fact that you have "your" there tells me that it's a thought because, yeah, grammar. I don't need to explain that one, right?
But you don't. I mean, if I italicize that, I'd be italicizing like half the stuff in the book. I mean, that would be a really weird spot to italicize. You know, because like I'm in her head all of the time. Like above, you know, she hadn't realized she'd been hurt that bad.
Right, but this is a very, again, with this comma and the way that you're pitching it to me, it's very much more stream of conscience than probably most of this is. Like everything else that I'm seeing on this page is not stream of conscience. But that is, again, the fact that you have the word "your" in it tells me that it is a direct thought of hers and not just an observation by a third person observing her thoughts. Does that make sense?
I don't know. I think that.
And again, I'm not telling you that you should italicize it because it's your style. But because of how this statement is presented, I'm going back to my original argument that stylistically, that's why that comma is there, even though it doesn't actually serve a function. And in fact, that comma could be your way of indicating that it is a thought because you don't want to put italices on thoughts.
Yeah, maybe that. I think we're making up some rules here.
Well, the thing with the creative writing aspect of this is that there is not a specific rule for it, and you have to get really flexible with the rules in a lot of situations. I've got a story where I have a character who's deaf, so I have to like go crazy on like getting notations for like every different level, whether it's a thought or whether she's signing or whether she's talking, but you know, like I'm totally blanking on words right now, mouthing out words. So there is this is something that's left up to the author to an extent, and I believe that's just where we are right now.
Yeah, I've hijacked this whole thing. We should have been writing like 5 minutes ago.
We can keep going on this though. I'm okay with this.
You want to keep going? Okay,
yeah, so if you want to argue more about this, we'll argue more about this.
I mean I have plenty of becauses, and I it's not that I mean to argue about it, but I feel like, so I put the comma in there, right? So we agree that the comma should be there.
Yeah.
It's just there isn't a clear reason to me why.
You finally talked it down to a clear reason.
Perhaps. All right, let's see if I can't find another one.
I gave a more vague reason, and that didn't fly at all.
Do I do this anywhere else?
All those make it really easy.
Yeah,
you don't have to think about it.
Yeah, those are nice. Okay, so this one, and of course, like when you go through your own writing like this, you start to think to yourself, "Gosh, like, do I just have some very strange habits that make this complicated for me?" But okay, so this one,
the comma needs to be taken out.
And I grumbled back that it could be warmer in the winter because I was going through a quiet dissatisfaction with everything phrase, and I thought she was fine. Yes, it does need to be taken out, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because it ties back to I grumbled back, which again is that weird, like, yeah.
Yeah, so that one.
I feel like there's a lot of really fancy words on explaining that the reason for it, and I just have never come across those. But it's the same as my not X because Y statement.
Right. Okay, so that one's a relatively easy one.
Yeah.
Okay, how about this one? And she must have looked like she could do it because he left.
Hold on, it's taking me a second to get where you are.
Actually, I should read the whole thing. He had wanted to stay, but Karina threatened to freeze him to death. And she must have looked like she could do it because he left. So I'll tell you why I put the comma in there, I think. But you tell me first if you think it should be in there or not.
He had wanted to stay. I think it's no comma on that.
So I think I could have left it without the comma.
You just liked it because of the cadence.
I think the problem to me is when there are like multiple verbs. Yes, you're right. I liked it because of the cadence, because there was another comma, like it was a parallel comma, and I wanted that in there. But I think that what throws me in these are like the multiple verbs. Like there's must have, looked like, could do it. And by the time you get to the because, I feel like there's a question of like, what is the because referring to? So the pause, I don't know, maybe this is just in my head, but I feel like the pause clarifies it. But I can't even explain most of these. Like I have to go back usually with my becauses, and I take out about half of them, and then I leave in about half, and almost like a quarter of the decisions are things like this where I'm like, and
they're wrong either way.
Yeah, exactly. Like, is it she must have looked because, or she could do it because?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about now. You write really bad because sentences. I'm writing style on this. I probably do this too, and I just never really thought about it because it just, I don't know.
I don't know. I might ramble in my like real life. Like this might be how I talk, and it's just a weird problem. But I think that this is part of why commas are hard for people. I think that they're here. Let me switch us back to us since we only have like 5 minutes left, and I've just totally hijacked our writing time. Sorry.
And we have established the fact that we are clearly not the experts on this subject.
or just that it's hard. I mean, these aren't. And
I think we've kind of proven the point. I don't know about you, but I'm constantly seeing people in the writers groups saying, you know, I just had my story go through a copy editor. The copy editor is telling me all this stuff, and I don't like it. And what do I do? And at the end of the day, your copy editor is still just giving advice. No, there's no set in stone. I mean, there's certain things that are, but, you know, obviously with these becauses, this is a good example of things that are not set in stone, because we can logically give reasons either way for them. And then also you have the issue of style guides, and, you know, you get people who say, well, no, you must follow Chicago. And then you have other people who say, well, you must follow MLA. And you have more people saying you must follow APA, and I'm probably missing like 17 other style guides in there that are all like recognized by somebody, some major organization. You know, and I feel like what we talked about last week with the Oxford comma is the perfect example of the fact that especially if you are going self-publishing, that you got to decide the rules for yourself, and you just got to be consistent with it. Oh, and then also you got rules depending on the country you're in. A lot of times British stuff, they don't use double quotes, they use single quotes. So yeah, like you have to decide what rules you're going to follow, and then you need to do your best to follow those rules. But you're always going to get told by, somebody out there that you're doing it wrong. And you can either fret over it for the rest of your life and like irritate 1,000 other people to appease this one, or you can figure it out for yourself and say, this is what I'm sticking with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. I feel like I think, it's good to have some rules in mind, right? So like ideally I want those becauses to make sense, right? But since punctuation is there for the sake of clarity, like you don't overdo it, but you think it needs to be there because otherwise it makes no sense. Maybe sometimes it needs to be there. And yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe you just don't worry about it after that. I have to tell you, my copy editor didn't change any of my commas with my becauses. I neurotically went through all of those. Like, he was fine with whatever I'd picked. So that must be a weird enough one that copy editors have trouble with it. But my ellipses.
Or that particular copy editor subscribes to this logic that follow the strict rules and then see what works best for other stuff.
Yeah. But I hope if you are watching, I hope that you're less confused, more free,
more confident in your commas.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Are you more confident in your commas, Chloe? I'm not sure about me.
I've always been more confident in my commas than you are. Sorry.
But I usually think I'm right about my commas. I just can never explain why. I have no.
I feel like being able to explain why is an important aspect. Excuse me.
I suppose gut sense grammar doesn't necessarily work, but it's kind of yeah. This is a dangerous thing. That is where half my grammar comes from. So kids, do not follow my example. It's a bad one. So next week, are we doing grammar? No, it's camp, right?
It is camp next week. Camp begins next week. That's Camp NaNoWriMo.
Yeah. So we'll be thinking about camp stuff then.
Yes.
So we'll be going for words in some way, probably.
Yes, I'll be editing. I'll be going for editing hours, but that's just how camp is now.
I think I will be as well. So maybe we'll have to figure out how to, I don't know. Have you ever done like editing hour tricks and such? Like I know with word sprints and such, you can like increase your word count, but.
Oh, no, like just do it. Just goddamn do it. I know. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's all those like little editing aids out there. They're like pro writing. Is that one? Am I making words up? But yeah, there's all those things that I guess you can use for it. But I think once you get to the editing aspect, it's really just like hunkering down and doing it. And there's nothing really that's going to get your speed up. Oh, I guess there are ways to be more efficient with it though. So maybe we'll talk about some editing efficiency.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So it's 6 o'clock. So should we end?
Yeah. Let's get out of here.
All right. Sorry about that last writing sprint.
It's okay. We argued. It was fun.
It was fun. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.